Collision impact imminent. Warning. 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 Collision impact imminent.
Computer, run a diagnostic scan and give me an overlay of hull integrity. Show me the trajectory of the medium.
Based on current speed and trajectory, probability of survival is 10% and dropping.
What's up, my filmmaking friends and musical misfits? UVI just recently dropped a new product called Click, and as a follow-up to a previous video I did using Walker 2 and Unlock, link up there and link down there, I wanted to give Click a test drive and run it through its paces in a real-world scenario like the video that you saw at the beginning. Huge shout out to Joran over at the Pixel Lab for allowing me to use this 3D animation. The animation was a promo for our 3D environment product pack. Go check it out as soon as you get done watching this video. Full disclosure, while this is not a sponsored video by UVI, they did send me the product to evaluate and use, but they're not paying me for this video. They don't have any say-so in the content of this video, and they will not see it before it's posted. Let's watch the promo again, and then we'll go into the breakdown.
Warning. Collision impact imminent. 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 Warning. Collision impact imminent.
Computer, run a diagnostic scan and give me an overlay of hull integrity. Show me the trajectory of the medium.
Based on current speed and trajectory, probability of survival is 10% and dropping.
Here we are in Cubase, and as you can see, I've organized this project into three main sections: sound effects, music, and Vox, and there's a marker track on the top. The very first thing that I did, as you can see with the marker track, I did what's called a spotting session. That's something that you would typically do with your director or a client. You basically just go through the video, taking notes on where specific sound effects and music cues need to hit at specific points. The first sound element that I laid down was the ambient room tone. I pulled up Extreme Effects 2 for this, and ironically, as you can see by the preset name, there's a preset specifically called Space. It's broken up into 4 sections. There's a flyby spaceship section, landing spaceship section, a spaceship interior, and void. Initially, I was going to go with one of the interior sounds, but I really liked the ominous feel of the void sounds, so I ended up using those instead. The next sound that I added was the alarm that you're hearing at the beginning. There's no visual cue that suggests if there's any kind of warning or threat level, but that's one of the great things about sound design as a storytelling device, is that you can use sound as a foreshadowing element to elude or inform the audience that something is not right. It also creates an added layer of urgency. For the alarm, I've actually layered together 2 different instances of Click. Click has quite a few alarm presets, and something that I want to note here: if you hold down the key on your MIDI keyboard, it cycles through the alarm going up and down. I only wanted it to go up, and that's a really great advantage to a plugin like this, is that you have the ability to perform the sound effect just like a Foley artist. And I did the exact same thing with the other preset to get a final composite of the 2 sounds together. 2 other things that I wanted to showcase here about Click. This is the original preset of Siren 03. And compare that with the modifications that I made. On the left side of the interface, there are 5 dials: rotary, distance, reverb, delay, and velocity. Focusing on distance and reverb, by default on this preset, they're linked together, so I unlinked them and then I adjusted them individually. For a more detailed look at these functions, I strongly suggest that you go over to UVI's channel and check out the walkthrough that Cameron, aka Venus Theory, did of this plugin. So the quick version of what these dials do. Distance is going to simulate exactly what the name suggests, how close or far away the sound sounds. The sound sounds? The sound sounds. The sound sounds in the mix. And reverb is going to give you a sense of the type of room that the sound is in. For this particular effect, I wanted some distance, and I wanted it to sound like it was in a big room. With the reverb, I changed it to a convolution reverb, and I set it to a very large room, and in this case, a cathedral. Combine that with the other alarm layer, in which I made similar adjustments, and it sounds like this. I'm going to gloss over the door opening sound effects because it's a mixture of sounds from Extreme Effects 1.5 with one instance of click. One of the things that I do want to quickly showcase here on this instance of click is a lot of the presets have alternate versions of a particular sound, as you can see below the image. For instance, in the door opening, I'm using the preset called Industrial Lever 01. And by default, the setting has the first version of the sound activated, and it's across the key range, and it pitches up and down depending on how far you go away from the original sound, which is on C3. Now, to hear all the other versions of this sound, you simply disable Expand Selected Item, and the keyboard changes to show you the other versions available. Next up is the light switching on. The core of this sound is click, but I've accentuated it with a couple of instances of UVI's Meteor. This is a perfect spot to showcase some of the presets like the buttons and the switches. They have these little ancillary elements of sound that you may not realize are present in the overall sound of turning a switch on or off, like the release sound that's made after the initial activation of a button. Also, some of the buttons make a completely different sound when you turn them off versus turning them on, and UVI has given you the option to have more control over those ancillary sound effects. In the instance in which I've used it in this project, I increased the sound of the push, I decreased the sound of the release, and instead of having it alternate between an on and off state, I locked it down so the plugin is only triggering the on state of the sound effect. And then I used a couple of instances of Meteor to round out the bottom end of the sound, giving it an impactful low end hit to emphasize the light switch. The UI alarm is another instance of click, something that I wanted to show here. So this particular preset has the arpeggiator activated, which is what's giving it that on and off sound. So if I turn the arpeggiator off, it just triggers once. Turning it on gives this on and off effect. The other thing that I haven't shown is that at the bottom of this beep section, there's a number of speaker IR presets. So IR stands for impulse response, which is a digital audio file that captures the sonic characteristics of an acoustic space, or in this case, a piece of equipment like a speaker. Here's what that sounds like if I choose a different speaker. I'm going to skip over the footsteps, which I used Walker 2 for that, and I'm also going to skip over some of the other UI elements in the scene. And I want to go straight to the sound of the object approaching because I wanted to showcase an additional feature of click, and that's the rate dial that's inside the arpeggiator. I'm using the Alarm Clock 02 preset, and with the ARP on, it has this default on and off pattern if you hold down the key. And I wanted the rate to increase as the object got closer and closer and closer. And to achieve that, what I did was I mapped the rate dial to a MIDI CC channel, so I was able to animate the rate increase as the object got closer and closer to the collision. The final elements of sound design are a couple of instances of Meteor, some additional instances of click, and whoosh to accentuate the logo reveal. And the final piece of auditory punctuation. I added a musical sting at the end, using UVI's Asteroid, Augmented Orchestra, and a couple of instances of Aurora. And that's it. I know this was a super quick run through. If you have any questions, definitely leave them in the comments below. Please do me a huge favor, like and subscribe, share this video far and wide. Stay frosty, keep creating. I'll see you in the next one. Love you all. Bye for now.